Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. We get, among other requests, a lot of requests to make baby clothes, and one of the biggest, most requested things is a baby sweater or a baby cardigan. So today, I thought, after really working through all the different possible easy patterns in my head, I've come up with what I think is the best newborn baby cardigan that you can try if you've never made a baby cardigan before. So, it looks something like this, or like this. And a little while ago, we did the V-stitch tutorial, so a half double crochet V-stitch pattern. And that is the pattern that you're going to be using to make this super cute little baby cardigan. So if you need a refresher, you can pop over to our video and do the dishcloth or just practice a few lines to get comfortable with it again. And we'll put that link in the description box below as well. And that is really all you need. This newborn baby sweater will fit most newborn babies that are between 7 and 10 pounds. So if you've got a preemie, don't worry, they grow. And if you're going to try and upsize it just a little bit because the baby's already come along and you're not sure how this is going to, how long it's going to take you, just upsize your hook a little bit and it should be just fine. But for most babies between 7 and 10 pounds, this is a newborn baby cardigan pattern. And you only need about 120 grams of lightweight size 3 3-ply yarn. And for all of our friends in the UK, you can use a DK weight yarn in this baby project and it should work out just fine. So without further ado, let's grab our hooks and yarn and head over to the craft table and make ourselves some baby cardigans. For today's baby cardigan, I'm using a lightweight size 3 acrylic yarn in bright pink and white for the trim. This is a lightweight yarn, it's 3-ply, and it's similar to a DK. So for all of our crafty friends over in the UK, you can use a DK weight yarn for this project. You're going to need a tape measure, a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and today I'm using a 4.25 millimeter hook, or a G6. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We're using the half double crochet V-stitch today, so if you need a refresher on that, you can visit the tutorial I mentioned in the beginning. And once you've got that under your belt, you can zip along with me. We're going to begin with the first front panel. So we're going to make 2 of these, and we're going to begin by chaining 18. Once you've got 18, you're going to half double crochet in the 4th, so this one right here, chain from the hook. So skip the first 3, find the 4th, and half double crochet into that chain. Chain 1, and half double crochet into the same chain as the first half double crochet. This half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet, creates your V-stitch. You're going to skip 2 stitches, identify the 3rd, and create a V-stitch in that chain. Half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet into the same chain. Skip 2 chains, find the 3rd, half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet into that same chain, and you can repeat this V-stitch, skip 2 chains, V-stitch, skip 2 chains, all the way across to the end of your first row, and when we get there, I'll explain the end of it. Once you've worked your V-stitch all the way across, the last V-stitch should leave you with 2 chains left in your foundation chain row. So you skip that last one and you simply work a single half double crochet into that last stitch. So 1 half double crochet into the last chain on your row. So your first row looks like this. We skipped the first 3 chains, and that actually counts as a half double crochet, that's 2 chains, plus a skipped chain, and then you started your pattern in the 4th chain from the hook. You should have a total of 5 full V's all the way across, and then you end with skip 1 chain, half double crochet in your last stitch. Chain 2 to begin row 2, and from here on out, every V-stitch is worked into the center of the V-stitch, so that space of the V-stitch from the previous row. So you don't really have to count stitches anymore. You just have to find the next V-stitch, make sure you've got the middle of it, and work a V-stitch directly into that space. And that's what creates that pretty little lacy effect. Remember, once you get to the end of your row, you're going to work a V-stitch in your last V-stitch of the row previous, skip over the stitch next to it, and find the top of that chain 2 and half double crochet into it. So you've worked your last V-stitch. Remember, skip that last stitch, half double crochet into the top of the chain 2. That will keep your work nice and square, flat, running up both sides. You're going to repeat your V-stitch, chain 2 to begin, V-stitch in each V-stitch across, and half double crochet in the top of the chain 2 from the previous row. Repeat that for 14 rows in total. So that was row 2. I'm going to leave you to do rows 3 through 14 all by yourself, and I'll catch up with you at the end. Once you've finished 14 rows, you should have a panel that looks something like this. Now you want to grab your measuring tape and just check your sizing. So after the 2nd row or the 3rd row, you've probably got enough that you can double check. You should have a piece of fabric that is around 3.5 inches by approximately 6 inches. So 3.5 by 6. If you're a little over or a little under, don't worry, because the border is going to make it a little bit bigger. And if you're a little over, that's okay, because babies grow, so don't worry. Now, we're not going to fasten off just yet. We need to finish off one raw edge and run some stitches across the bottom. This is just to make it easier for adding our border later. So we're going to chain 1. We're going to flip our work so that we're looking at the raw edge that's immediately next to where we put our last stitch. And you're going to start single crocheting. So using the single crochet, you're going to carefully pick up little pieces of the sides of the stitches all the way down the side of your front panel. And you're going to work approximately 21 stitches. It will keep your work nice and framed. So you don't want your stitches to pull, and you don't want them to fan out. So approximately 21 stitches. However many you work down the side of your first panel, write that number down, because you're going to want to make sure you work the same number down the other panel, because it doesn't matter if you have 20, 21, 19, 22, whatever looks best on your side. So whatever makes the raw side of your front panel look neat and tidy, that's how many you want to work down the other panel so that everything's balanced. Once you've finished working single crochets down that one raw edge of your front panel, you're going to turn, work another single crochet into the same place you worked your last single crochet. So this should be sort of the first chain of your foundation chain row. And then you're going to work across the bottom of your foundation chain row. So in total, you should have 17 single crochets across the bottom of your front panel. So just slowly work your way across, picking up the bottom of every single one of the chains of your foundation chain row, and you should have 17 single crochets across the bottom of your front panel. Once you've worked 17 single crochets across the bottom of your front panel, you can snip your yarn, fasten off, and then weave in your ends. You're going to leave the other raw edge free, so you don't have to go all the way around. You only want to do the one side and the bottom of your front panel. Now you can make panel number 2. So you can go ahead Start single crocheting. You want to chain 18 to begin. Start working your V-stitch pattern, and you're going to work for 14 rows. So just like we did with the first one. But now we're going to do a mirror image. So once you've gotten to the end of your second panel, instead of chaining one, we're going to snip our yarn. So the idea here is to make a mirror image. This is going to be the panel. So consider the finished edge on the inside of your little sweater. So this is where your little sweater is going to open. So now obviously we want to make the same thing on the other side. So we want to do the opposite edge and then across the bottom. And that way everything will have the stitches on the right side. So instead of turning and working down the raw edge like you did the first time, you're actually going to start at the bottom corner, work your way across the bottom, and then up the other raw edge. And I'll show you what that looks like. Put the slip knot on your hook. Identify the first chain at the bottom of your foundation chain row, and you can join your yarn with a single crochet. So you pick up a loop, wrap, and then pull back through the two that are on your hook. Then it's just as though you kind of came down the other side. You're going to work across the bottom. You're going to work 17 single crochets across the bottom of the foundation chain row. Once you work 17 single crochet across the bottom, you're going to turn your work, work another single crochet. So let me just make sure I've got my last one there. So there's my last single crochet. I'm going to work another one in that same place, and now I'm going to turn and work up the other raw side. So on panel number 1, we finished the main part of the pattern, worked down the first raw side and across the bottom. On the second panel, you're going to work across the bottom first, turn, and then work up the opposite raw edge so that both of your new finished edges can face each other. So go ahead, work the same number of stitches up the other raw side as you did for the first panel. So if you worked 21 like I did, work 21 up this one. If you worked 20, make sure it's 20. Once you've worked across the bottom and up the other side, you can fasten off and weave in your ends. And that is the end of the front panels. That is also incidentally the most complicated pieces in this little pattern. So you should have now 2 pieces that look like this. The tops can face each other. There are 2 raw edges that sort of face away from each other. We've completely finished off the inside raw edges so that they can face each other, and then the bottoms are done. And like I said, this is so we make putting on the border a lot easier later. But that's your 2 front pieces. And now we can move on to the back panel. For your back panel, you're going to chain 36. Once you've chained 36, you begin the pattern the same way. So skip 3 stitches, the first 3 from the hook, find the 4th, V-stitch into that 4th chain from the hook, and that's half double crochet, chain 1, half double crochet, and then complete that pattern by skipping the next 2 chains, work a V-stitch into the 3rd, skip 2, V-stitch into the 3rd, all the way to the end. Remember to skip the last chain, half double crochet into the last one, and then you can work that pattern all the way up for a total of 14 rows. So 14 rows of V-stitch, and I'll see you up at the top of row 14. Alright, once you've completed 14 rows, you can fasten off, weave in your tails, and you can flip your work over so that you're staring at the foundation chain row. We don't have to finish any of the edges here, so our raw edges, we can just leave them the way they are, but we do want to run a row of single crochet across the bottom. So you're going to join your yarn in the first chain at the bottom of your foundation chain row, and you're going to single crochet into the bottom of each of those chains all the way across. You should have 35 single crochets at the end of this little tiny finishing row. Once you've worked 35 single crochets across the bottom of the foundation chain row of your back piece, you can fasten off and you can weave in that tail. Now that is the end of the back piece. And we've finished off that bottom row once again so that it makes it easier to add the border at the end. So now what you should have are 3 pieces that fit together like this. So each of these pieces is 6 inches tall, and your first 2 pieces should be roughly 3.5 inches wide, and your back piece is about 7 inches wide. So if it's a little off here and there, or it doesn't completely fit together perfectly, don't worry, because your border and putting it together is going to change it up a little bit. So it'll work out for you, don't worry. But that is what you've got so far. And now all we have to do are make the sleeves. The sleeves are even easier because there is no finishing whatsoever. So you're going to chain 33 to begin, complete the same V-stitch, and you're going to work 14 rows for this piece as well. So you're chaining 33 to begin, work the V-stitch for 14 rows, and fasten off and leave a nice long tail because you're going to use that to sew up your sleeve. All right, once you've got 2 sleeves, you can put one aside, grab the other, and grab your yarn needle. You're going to thread up that long tail, and if you forgot and weaved in your end, don't worry, you can just cut a long piece of your yarn. You're going to take your sleeve, fold it together widthwise so that both your raw edges are together, and then you're just going to sew up this seam. So go ahead, put your sewing skills to work. Try to keep your edges together. Try to grab a piece of a stitch from both sides. You don't have to make this a really thick seam, but try to put your stitches fairly close together. Remember, you don't want any gaps in your seam. And just work away at it nice and patiently. You can sew up the seams on both your sleeves, and then we'll start constructing our cardigan. We're going to begin to put our cardigan together now. So this is the front, or the right side of our back piece. So you can see where you finished coming across the bottom. That is the right side. So when those little sort of single crochets are facing up, and they look like that, that's the right side. So you're going to lay that right side up on your working table. Then you're going to take your 2 front panels, and it's the same thing. So the right side of your work is, if you sort of picture yourself sort of single crocheting, if you worked down the front edge and then turned the corner, this is the right side. So the right side of your work, I can compare it against the wrong side. The wrong side looks sort of rounded. You see, so you can see the bump of your single crochet. And the right side, you can more clearly see the little V's. So you're going to lay these right side down on top of your back piece. And you want to make sure that both the finished edges are across the bottom, and they line up with the finished edge of the back, and the finished raw edges are facing each other. And then you're just going to start to sew. This is the top, this is the bottom, this is the opening bit. You want to do your sewing so that your right sides are facing each other and all of your sewing is on the inside of your garment. You can sew the shoulder parts first, so you can grab some yarn, thread up your yarn needle, notch your yarn halfway across the top, so you can eyeball this. You look at your front panel, maybe count in 3 V-stitches, and at the top of that V-stitch, so the top of this stitch right here, it's about the middle. You want to make sure your edges are aligned over here. Stick your hook in, or I should say your needle, and sew from the middle point out. Do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Okay, once you've sewn from the middle across, you should have something that kind of looks like this. So that's the shoulder seams done. Now we're going to do the side seams. You're going to pick one side or the other to start, and you're going to work from halfway down. So you can eyeball this as well, or you can count down about 7 rows and pick the middle of the 7th row, knot your yarn, and then sew the side seam down to the bottom. Do that on both sides, and that's the side seams done. Since you've now sewn up both your side seams, you should have something that opens like this. Remember, we're still looking at this is the inside of the garment because we have it inside out right now. And you've got two little spaces here, and your neck is open here, and your bottom is completely open. Now, before we flip it right side out, you're going to take the opportunity to sew on your two sleeves. So if you've got a long string left hanging from when you sewed up your bottom seam, perfect. You can just use it to continue to sew your sleeve into the sleeve opening. One on one side and one on the other. And you want to start by lining up your bottom seam, so the seam of your, so the sort of the seam where you sort of sewed up the bottom, or sewed up the two edges of your sleeve. That's going to be the bottom of your sleeve. You're going to line up that seam edge with the bottom of your sleeve. So basically the armpit. This is going to be the armpit of our little cardigan. You can work your first stitch through here and then just very carefully hold your two edges together and work your way up and around. Take your time, stand back and eyeball it, and make sure that you don't end up buckling your sleeve or even your little cardigan. So this opening should be roughly the same size as your sleeve. If it's a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, you can stretch or squish your sleeve to make it fit. So just steadily work your way around, sew in both your sleeves, and then we'll put on our little cardigan border. All right, now your sleeves are in. Make sure you can put your hand inside the sleeve and you haven't accidentally sewn the edges together or sewn through your sleeve opening, because you want to be able to get a little arm in there. And that is the major construction. Now you can flip it right side out. And all of your stitching will be on the inside of your cardigan. Oh, this is so cute. And now you can grab your trim yarn, grab your hook, and we'll start putting on the borders. And by border, I mean this. So the border goes all the way around the external trim of the jacket. So you go all the way up and around the neck, down the other side, and around the whole bottom. We're going to do the sleeves separately, and I've got my sleeves rolled up here, but we're going to do the sleeves separately. So for now, we're just going to focus on making the main border, which goes all the way around the outside parts of our little sweater. So grab your trim color, make a slip knot, and put it on your hook. And here's why we finished off those raw edges. It's going to make putting on our trim a lot easier. So I like to start in the bottom corner. So right in the bottom corner, slip my hook in a corner stitch. Remember, this is all single crochet stitching around the edge, and we're going to use single crochet to put on our border. I'm going to join my yarn with a single crochet, and I'm going to work 2 stitches in that corner. I'm going to work 2 stitches in every single corner, just so that I can get a nice rounded edge going. And all I'm going to do is single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Just coming up on that first corner, if you'll recall, when we did the sort of the seams around the edges of our front panels, you might have sort of a bit of a right angle here. Just poke your needle in somewhere that looks like an exact corner or something close to it. Work 2 single crochets in that corner area, and then continue working a single crochet into every single stitch. So you want to work 2 single crochet in every corner. So everywhere there's a corner. So here's a corner over here. So that's a corner, and then all the way down at the front, that's a corner. Those are really your only corners. Everything else is pretty much flat, including going around the top part. And this is just the first border row, so you don't have to worry about anything fancy. You don't have to worry about putting in ties or anything yet. You're just going to work that border row number 1 in your nice trim color. So you're sort of establishing your border. So just steadily work around, 1 single crochet in each stitch. Remember to put 2 single crochets in each corner, just to sort of help make that border look nice and rounded. and then I'll catch back up with you at the beginning of this border row. I'm back at the beginning of the row, so I'm just going to join with a slip stitch to that first single crochet I made, and there is my first row of border. So I joined in the bottom corner and I worked single crochet all the way up side 1, worked 2 single crochet into the corner, worked all the way around the top edge or the neck, 2 more single crochet in this corner, down the other front panel, 2 single crochet in this corner, across the whole bottom, and then joined back up at the first single crochet. Remember, I worked 2 single crochets to begin right in that bottom corner. So here's what it looks like so far. Oh my gosh, I just love pink and white. So cute. Okay, so now that was the first border row of our little jacket. We're going to work one more border row that's going to make it nice and thick, and that's where we work in our built-in ties. So these little ties, nice and simple, nothing fancy, but it does tie up the front of your little cardigan and nothing can get pulled off. So let's do that. Okay, we're going to chain 1 to begin the row. We're going to single crochet into the same stitch that we chained out of. And you're going to pick one of your corner stitches. I'm going to pick this one here to be the stitch that I put 2 single crochets into. So I still want to work 2 single crochets into a corner stitch just so I can get that little bend going. Then I'm going to start single crocheting up the front panel until I get to about the middle. Alright, that's about the middle of my front panel. So if you need to look at it sort of like the front of the jacket, that's about the middle. And here's where I'm going to start my first tie. I'm going to chain 36. Once you've chained 36, try not to twist your work. It should be kind of easy because the weight of your sweater will kind of keep it from spinning around on you. Then we're going to slip stitch all the way back to our sweater. So you skip the first chain from the hook, put your hook through the second one, and slip stitch. And you're going to slip stitch into every single chain all the way back to your border row. So that will give you, in total, a tie that is 35 stitches long. Once you've slip stitched all the way back down your chained length and you get back to your border row, so it looks something like this. So that was my last chain. You're just going to continue single crocheting as though you never quit. So just continue single crocheting now all the way around and be aware of where you're at. So basically, when you get all the way around your neck and start coming down your other front panel, you want to be aware of where you're at because you want to pretty much eyeball where you put your first tie because you want to put that one in directly opposite of it. Alright, I'm just looking at it upside down here. I've come all the way around the neck. I'm all the way back down on the other side of my little jacket front. You want to make sure that your bottoms are lined up. Make sure that you've come down to about exactly opposite where you put your first chain in, or your first tie, and then you can start chaining. So remember it's 36, and then you slip stitch into the second chain from the hook all the way back to the border, and then continue on. And I'm back to the beginning. So I'm just going to take my hook and slip stitch to the first single crochet of my second border row, and I am done. I can snip my yarn, fasten off, and weave in that end. And I'm going to weave it in on the inside of the bottom of my border. And that is the main border and the ties all done. Now all we have to do are our little sleeve edges. So grab your hook, grab your trim yarn, put a slip knot on your hook, and pick up one sleeve or the other, doesn't matter. Start at the bottom of the seam, so the bottom of the sleeve where the seam is. just slip your hook in there wherever you find a single crochet or a stitch. Remember, this isn't a finished edge, but it should be the top. If you've got the bottom of your sleeve by accident, that's okay too. Just remember that you want to use every single chain, but you should have the top of your sleeve here. All you want to do is exactly what you did around the outside of your main sweater body. So you're just going to join your yarn with a single crochet and work a single crochet in each stitch, and don't forget the chains, all the way around. Once you've single crocheted all the way around the edge of your sleeve and you get back to the beginning, just slip stitch to the first single crochet you made. And if you want to join another border, so you want to do another row, try not to lose your stitch like me here. If you want to do another row, just chain one, single crochet in the same stitch that you just joined in, and then single crochet in each stitch all the way around. When you get to the end of row 2, just join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet of row 2 and fasten off. Weave in your ends, and don't forget to do your other sleeve edge. But past that, you're done. Now you can roll up your sleeves for that little tiny baby. You can roll them down if they've got nice little long arms, and you can tie it on them. I am so tickled with this little pattern. I love the V-stitch. I love how cute and lacy and sweet it is, but it's just as sweet for a little boy too. So it doesn't matter who you're making it for, just change up the color. And it's perfect for the new little star in the family. And that's it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And a special big thank you to all of our fans who popped by our Etsy shop in the last little while and have done some shopping. We really appreciate it. It helps keep us going here at the Jayda InStitches show. And we love you too. Thank you so much. We will see you again really soon on the Jayda InStitches show. So until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye, everybody.